And this means, as the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Prabhupada's purport. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. The individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it's sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma nor Drona, for whom he was so much concerned. So, just before I continue, Krishna is talking to his friend here, Arjuna, who is a warrior, for those of you who don't know the setting of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is a big fight that was supposed to take place 5,000 years ago. Yes. He's also speaking about Krishna, I'm sure. Right? Ja. Tekst nummer 213. Kapitel 2, tekst 13. So the Gita is spoken of 5,000 years ago on a battlefield. And Arjuna is supposed to fight against his... the political situation is that there is a warrior, he has to fight his teacher, he has to fight his friends, his relatives, and he does not want to do this. But Krishna says you have to. And in this doubt, in this situation, there is this whole discussion, which is the Bhagavad Gita, why Krishna says you have to fight. So God says you have to fight. And Yadunandana says, no, God, I don't want to fight. You have to fight and kill, God says. So, interesting, huh? Let's go on with the purport. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering according to one's work in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, is surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existence. So in either case, there was no cause for lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the supersoul, and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, a most sober man. Such a man is never bewildered by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory that of a oneness of the spiritual soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spirit cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion, the spirit soul. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of supreme souls being unchangeable. As confirmed in the Gita, that's a very interesting thing, isn't it? As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portion of the Supreme exists eternally, Sanatana, and are kshara. No, they are called kshara, that is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of Godhead. The theory of reflection can be applied to the supersoul who is present in each and every individual body and is known as the Paramatma. He is different from the individual soul, from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections present both the sun and the moon and also the stars. The stars can be compared to the living entities and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the personality of God, Shri Krishna. They are not at the same level as it will be apparent in the beginning of the 4th chapter. This is important now. If Arjuna is at the same level with Krishna, and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then the relationship of instructor or an instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy Maya, then there is no need of one being the instructor and the other being instructed. Such instruction would be useless because in the clutches of Maya no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul deluded by Maya. So that was Srila Prabhupada's explanation to this verse. Srila Prabhupada's explanation, and the verse is like this again. I'll read Sanskrit. I just had a cold, so I'm a little bit coughing, I'm sorry. Dehinosmin yata dehi kaumaram yavananjara tatha dehantara praptiridhiras tatra namuhyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Sorry. So this is the first instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, that the soul is eternal, does not die. And it does not die when the body dies. I just saw on the news, maybe some of you saw, that in the Christian church in Denmark there's one female priest who says, maybe there is reincarnation. Maybe. And she's getting a lot of trouble for that because, oh my God. Because in the Christian doctrine there cannot be anything such as reincarnation, they claim. Well, whether or not that's true, I don't know. There are many who claim that the original Christianity was definitely supporting these very, very ABC kinds of knowledge that the soul will go into another body after death. Because otherwise, you have a very hard time explaining why somebody is born poor and ugly and unhappy, and another is born very rich, happy and intelligent and beautiful. No, it's not fair. No, it's karma. That's all. It's because what you did in your last life affects your body in this life. It's very simple. There's nothing mystical about it. There is nothing very advanced in accepting reincarnation. But we are living in a society where people are taught that by a combination of dead matter, life takes form. What a foolish idea! Come on, people, does anybody believe this nonsense? That you can combine some matter and then create life? Anybody who comes with this idea should be shot. Shot in the head. No, because it's destroyed the modern society so much that they're teaching us that we are products of matter. And then all life becomes completely meaningless. Yeah? That if we're just a product of matter, it doesn't matter what we do. My life is meaningless anyway. We can kill, we can rape, we can rob banks, we can steal cars, we can set fire to containers, and we can shoot down airplanes. It doesn't matter. Because life is anyway meaningless. So this is the result of Big Bang, Darwinism. Darwinism, by the way, was just a result of the industrial development in the 1800s. It has no truth in it whatsoever. It's just complete nonsense. That things develop from nothing into more sophisticated forms without help, without a superior hand. It goes against the second law of thermodynamics even. You cannot do such, you cannot come with such a claim and then create a philosophy of the whole world and control the media by it and make people idiots. No. We have to stop this nonsense. It's not proper. So therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is here, and our purpose is to stop this nonsense. Period. And replace it by Krishna consciousness. Replace it by real knowledge. The knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge from God. So the first thing we have to know is that we are eternal beings. Eternal. We never die and we're never born. Right? And this should be the just basic idea of any religion. That the soul is an eternal part of the Lord. And it will never die. And since the body is just living for a few years, so what happens to the soul when it's out of this body? So if you don't go to heaven, there is eternal condemnation in hell. How can that be? How can that be a good God? No, 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 no. Of course, God will give you so many chances you need, and so many bodies you need, in order to become, intelligent enough to return to Him one day. So that is the fact. Reincarnation and the regulation of the process of reincarnation is, of course, the law of karma. As you act, so you reap. As you sow, so you reap. This is in the Bible also. They forgot to take that out. As you sow, so shall you reap. In 325 in Ikea, they forgot to take some stuff out, so the Bible is still containing some things about reincarnations. There's also other things which is very funny. But when the Emperor Constantine was becoming Christian, he did not like all these, the chance of becoming born in another body. He wanted to go to heaven immediately. So no reincarnation and no karma. They took it out of the Bible, but it's there. So in any case, the next thing, after you accept that the soul is eternal, is to accept that the soul does not belong in this world. We are in this world because we are put here as a punishment. There is no way of becoming happy in this material world. We are born, we grow up, we live for a little while, and then we die. So how can you be happy? How can you? It takes like 30 years to get a good education. You cannot make your first million until you're 50. And then when you're 60, you're almost dead. I mean, what's the use of such lives? And this is what people live for. Get an education, work, and then die. Without getting anything more out of life than just some money and an education on how to make money. Is this what we want out of human life? Come on, people! Please! There has to be something more. Right? Then you say, well, I'm not religious, I don't believe in any God. How can there be any God? I can't see any God. I want to just be... That's why we're here. Because we have this hatred against the idea of God. We have this hatred of somebody who's controlling us, somebody who's in power of everything, who is... we hate that idea. We want to be completely independent. So, but I'm sorry, it's not possible. Even to become independent, God has to help you. Because in fact, as living spirit soul, we are parts of God, as Prabhu says. We are fragmental parts of God. And as such, we are always conscious. In our natural position, we always know that we are part of God. Just as a particle of sunshine is light. It's obviously part of the light. And we are obviously part of God. So, eternal parts of God. What was my point? I forgot the point.
You need the help.
Yeah, even to forget God. It's good that I have him here. Even to forget God, you need His help. We are here because we wanted to forget that God is the boss. I want to be the boss. Why should He be the boss? Why should He be the only enjoyer and I serve Him? Same old thing is going on with, in the workplace here. Everybody hates the boss, and it goes back to God. Everybody hates God. That's why we're here, in this prison of birth and death. And because we are under the sway of very bad leaders who are completely in illusion, we are trying to become happy in this material world. We're trying to forget Krishna. And Krishna is very kind. He says, okay, you want to forget me? Forget me then. I'm no dictator God. I'm a very loving God. So if you want to forget me, I will help you. But I will not leave you. That's the love of God. He may let us forget Him. For me, he says, I'm in the heart of every living entity. I follow you from the spiritual world. I expand myself into Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. First, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, in the heart of all living entities. And I follow you to the material world. And I make you forget that you're mine. Even to forget God, He has to help us. So at no point in time has God left us. And at no point in time have we left Him, even though we think so. We cannot leave God, because if we really left God, we would stop to exist. Like a spark of the fire who falls on the floor, just becomes a piece of ash very quickly. So that's our situation in this mature world. We are trying to escape from the fire of love of Godhead and what it means to be subordinate to God. The idea of being God's servant is not appealing to the living entity, because as a servant you have to do what somebody else is telling you. But actually, when you think about it, if anybody here has been falling in love ever, anybody tried to fall in love?
Yes.
Yes. So when you fall in love with somebody, you don't mind doing something for that person. If you love somebody, you do anything for that person, right? You serve, you know. The one you love, you serve. Therefore, love means service. Yeah. So, to serve God means to serve Him out of love. That is the education we're trying to emit in the Krishna consciousness movement, that don't be afraid of the idea of service. But first develop love of God, and then serve out of spontaneous love. Just like when you're in love with somebody. You want to do something for that person. When a man is in love with a girl, there's no limit to what he can do. Nothing. Of course, that love has a motive, we know that. But there is no limit to the service they can do. And then vice versa also. If a woman wants a man, she will be very helpful, and it's like that. So love means service. If you love somebody, you have a tendency to serve that person. And that is a reflection of the original love of Godhead. But love of Godhead is very different, because it is not motivated by lust. In the mature world, when a man falls in love with a woman, the love is a little bit selfish. Any man knows that. There is a motive. There is an urge to be satisfied also in this picture of that love, so to speak. But in the spiritual world, the love there and the service there have no motivation. It is only pure love. So the education that the Krishna consciousness movement is giving is we are teaching who God is in detail. Because if we want to develop love for somebody that we cannot see, because God is spiritual and this body is material, so these eyes cannot see God. You know? So we have to learn about God. You know, when you hear about somebody, you may actually fall in love with that person if he's a very interesting person. You know, by hearing, oh wow, is he like that? Wow. So, because when we talk about Krishna like that, it is not just like talking about, Justin Bieber or something. It's like you're talking about an absolute person. So when you talk about Krishna, he's not only something you talk about, he's actually there in that sound vibration. So that is the education of the Krishna consciousness movement. That's why very often you will see us speak on the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the one is speaking and all is listening. So that we are doing that to try and create the atmosphere of the presence of the Lord by speaking about Him, by singing about Him, then calling the Lord to come here. And in this way, if that is done in a proper way, and I hope we do it in a proper way, then the Lord will come and He will feel His presence. And He will think, oh, maybe it's something interesting here. So like that. So instead of the soul wanting to become separate from God, we are teaching that it's better to again reunite with God, and consciously unite with God. Because as I said in the beginning, never was there a time when we were not together with God. All the time have we been together with God, because in heart, here in the heart, in the middle of the heart, in a transcendental way, the soul is resting in 5 life airs, and the super soul is also there, on the side of the soul, at the same place. The soul is there, and the super soul is there. So God, in His aspect of the all-seeing witness, the all-pervading Godhead, is present personally in your heart, together with you. He has never left you. And the reason why we remember things, we forget things, and we get inspiration, and we are permitted to do things, we're forbidden to do things, is coming from the super soul. So even our big technological advancement and our computers, mobile phones, smartphones, iPhones, pads, whatever, it is not we who have done these things. Krishna did them for us, but gave us the credit because we wanted it. Right? Who else can have done it if all intelligence comes from Krishna? So He created this. And we have to be very ashamed of ourselves. instead of using our lives to become Krishna conscious, to use this one human life out of so many species of life, of animals and insects that cannot become Krishna conscious, only the human can, we chose to use our energy to make computers and cars and factories and slaughterhouses and cinemas and cigarettes, instead of using these 100 years to prepare ourselves for the next life. That is the meaning of human life. The meaning of human life is to prepare for death. Everybody is going to die. Everybody. Death rate 100%. Death rate 100%, read all about it. No, what? 100% death? Yes, everybody dies, mister. Oh, so that's news? Yeah, to some people. Right? It is. We never think about death. We think about, oh, my education, my children, I have to make sure for the next generation that I leave enough money for my children, and a house, and make sure my daughters are married, and yes, all these things. But forget about, human life is actually meant to get free of the attachment to the three modes of nature, and to transcend, and to enter into samadhi, by always thinking of Krishna. In the previous ages, the big yogis, they sat in the caves of the mountains, the Himalayas, for 60,000 years and meditated in the 8 levels of yoga. So since we only live 100 years in this life, we have to have a quicker method. So the quicker method is the Hare Krishna mantra, and a little bit of mercy from the Lord in this age, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and a little help from the pure devotee in the form of Srila Prabhupada and his instruction in his books. These things together make us able to reach the level of ecstasy, or even beyond, compared to the old classical yogis even. If you know what a yogi is. A fakir, somebody who's practicing austerity and who is attaining high levels of consciousness by forsaking material things, by living a very, very, very materially Spartanic, ascetic life. So in the Krishna consciousness movement, we are also, in our modern way, trying to be a type of yogis, but we are bhakti yogis. We are practicing the yoga of love. Not material love, no. Spiritual love. The yoga of love in service to the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we are accepting the absolute knowledge of Lord Shri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the absolute truth, and the knowledge presented through the disciplic succession coming down through the Lord when he was here 5,000 years ago, and also through Lord Chaitanya who was here 500 years ago, is the absolute truth, and it's always the absolute truth, has been forever and will be forever, and there's no change in the absolute truth. So, what we're presenting here in this Krishna consciousness movement is the unchanged knowledge coming down through the generations since the Lord himself, since time immemorial. And the only thing we have to do as human beings, I'm not only talking to the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, I'm talking to those who are not yet members, or those who are not members, or those who want to be members, but we are all part of God. So all we have to do is to maintain, preserve, conserve this knowledge. Yeah? So we want to, our request to everybody who's here is to buy at least one of these books, read it, and then spread the knowledge. That's all. And if you don't want to read, we have some recordings. You can also hear the books on Radio Krishna Online. There's a narration of the books, Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam. You can hear either by podcasting, downloading, or streaming. All the possibilities are there. There's an online radio in there, krishna-online.dk. So either that or you buy the books, because it's essential. Srila Prabhupada, he wanted these books to be spread to every home. It is not that this Krishna consciousness movement is just meant to read these books. No, everybody is meant to read these books. Even the atheists. Even if you're an atheist or a complete disbeliever, you will find these books interesting. They're interesting. They will at least disturb you. At least they will make you angry. But then after you've been angry for a while, you may think, maybe there was something There was one, actually, we are known, not so much now than before, the Krishna consciousness movement, we are known to be on the street selling books. And this may annoy people very much because they don't know what these books are about, and there are so many cheaters, so we are just one of the cheaters, in the eyes of people when you come on the street. So we are a bit annoying sometimes. Please take a book. And there was one man, I think it was in Germany or in England, I don't know, maybe America, who made it a point to irritate the devotees when they were selling books. He would steal their books. Every time he saw a devotee, he would steal the book. Hey, come back there! You can't get it from... But anyway, what can you do? You let him steal the book. At least it's a book about Krishna. So after a while, he had so many books. And he started reading these books. And now he's a devotee. So, by hook or by crook, get a book. These books are, you can call them magic. There's no explanation to the power of these books. It is Prabhupada's mercy, coming from the Lord's mercy, that He gives and puts in these books. And when we read them, we get the mercy. So it's very simple. Just put yourself in a frame of mind that you can understand this knowledge, and this is done by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So when you go home, chant this mantra a little bit before you go to bed, and then when you go up in the morning, chant it you can chant for maybe 2 hours or so. Or a little bit. It is very efficient, and then you will read a little bit Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam before you go to work or whatever you do, and your day will be much better. But you need these books. It's essential. This knowledge, we have to replace the knowledge that we get through the media with proper knowledge. All the knowledge we get through the media and the newspapers is given by people who are under the modes of nature. They're in Maya, they're under the material illusion, so nothing they say can make any sense. It is not the truth. What you read in Extrablad or here in TV2 News is not the truth. It is some relative information about what's going on in the material world, but it's not going to get you out of the material world. So, since the 1800s, I don't know what, since the beginning of Kali Yuga, there have been forces trying to replace the spiritual knowledge with so-called material knowledge, epitomized by Big Bang theory and Darwin's theory, all nonsense, all complete lying nonsense. Please understand how bad these theories are and how destructive they are for the human being. When everything starts from God, who is the highest person, who is the highest Father, and everything falls down in that hierarchy, and we are all related to Him like a big family, then there is the chance of love, because we know He's the boss, we are the children, and there's no envy, we're all His servants. But as soon as everybody says there's no God, we're all equal, then everybody is at war with each other all the time. Yeah, you can call it democracy, that's just a war without weapons, or politics. But it has nothing to do with love. You cannot have love in a society where everybody is so-called equal. Because equal means, because we're envious always, we want to be the boss, that means everybody's just fighting all the time. Yeah, compromises, yeah. Tell it to the judge. No. We have to have absolute pure knowledge coming down from Krishna, and we have to replace all this relative nonsense that we are born out of matter, that chemicals can create life. I mean, how can anybody believe that if he thinks just a little bit? So this nonsense has to be replaced by proper knowledge, and that proper knowledge will take away ignorance, it will take away all your depressions, it will take away all the bad things in your mind, and you will actually become happy. But, in order to understand this knowledge, we have to be in a right frame of mind. We have to get rid of the lower qualities of material nature, ignorance, passion, lust, greed, impatience, all these things, and become calm. And that is done by the Hare Krishna mantra. And then,